Hey everybody, my name is LaPrecious and welcome to my channel. Let's talk with LaPrecious. So today I'll be talking to you all about last night's Unsung episode of Switch. When I saw the commercials for the Switch episode, I was very excited. Even though I'm 22 years old, I love oldie golden music, and I would say the music from the DeBarge family has always been my favorite because myself, as probably many other 90s kids, if other 90s kids saw the episode of DeBarge, we did not know that when when I Like It came on the radio, or let's see, another song they did called "Stay with Me" and "A Dream" by Bunny DeBarge. Those were the songs that were sampled by a lot of rap artists like Biggie Smalls and Tupac Shakur. A lot of us didn't know that that was DeBarge that had originally had those beats and that originally had those songs. So I would say I was very excited to see the DeBarge episode when it came out 9 years ago. And I was excited when I saw the Switch episode because of the Barge family. Like I said before, I love their music, I love their vocals, I just love that group. But it's sad that they're such a musical family that they dealt with as many struggles as they did. And we saw that same struggle within the Switch episode because many of you don't know who Switch is. Switch was a popular and still is a R&B group. They started out in the 70s on the Motown record label, which was the same record label that the DeBarge family group got started on. And the lead singer of Switch was Bobby DeBarge, who was the eldest brother of the DeBarge family singing group. Because there were 10 siblings in all of the DeBarge family, and the only ones that were famous, I'm not sure if the other three out of the 10 were famous, but the most notable ones is Bobby, Elle, Randy, Bunny, Tommy, Chico, James, and I'm missing the other three. I can't remember the other three names. I just remember the last two out of the 10 siblings were twins, and they were a man and a woman, but I don't remember their names, and I don't know if they had a singing career like their other siblings did. But out of the 10 siblings, I know that the seven that I named are the most known ones out of that family. And Bobby DeBarge was the lead singer of Switch, and Tommy was a vocalist in that group as well. So the Unsung episode, it started out talking about the origins of Switch and everybody that was in Switch. And of course, since Bobby DeBarge was the most notarized one, and since he came from such a notable family, most of the episode did talk about Bobby. But it also talked about how the group, they dealt with their, typical group history, and they dealt with their typical group struggles, how they dealt with everybody's struggles in the group, how they were able to sync with their different personalities and with their different sounds, and how they were just really innovative and creative group. Because one of the people that gave an account of Switch in the episode said that they had something to present to people that had never been seen before. And that, I would say, that's something that I miss from music, is that when you look at, especially within the black music market, when you look at the 70s, 80s, and 90s, I consider those to be like the golden eras. Now, they had some good acts in the 60s and in the 50s, but I feel like in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, those were like the innovative, creative, and groundbreaking eras, because you just saw groups and people that were just so different and so new, but they were interesting. And not only were they different and new, they were people you could relate to. They sung about things that people went through in life. They sung about everything from breakups, makeups, to affairs, to, high school, puppy love, crushes, and, just life in general. Back then, like I always said, it was like reading a book, listening to a lot of their albums, because it was nothing but musical stories that they told. And I felt like that's what made black music so rich and so interesting and just so wonderful back then. And unfortunately, we don't have a lot of that now, because in a lot of the songs that come out, especially in R&B and rap, they sing and rap about sex, drugs, and getting high and driving around in cars that most of us that listen to that music and rock to it can't afford. And, it's just unrealistic. But going back to the Unsung episode, I thought it was great and I thought it was excellent. And I kind of feel like it was well overdue because the DeBarge episode, and I knew that they would play it in the lineup like that because before they premiered the Switch episode, they played the DeBarge episode. And the DeBarge episode, I believe, was the second episode in the first season of Unsung. Unsung has been on for almost 10 years because the first episode came out in 2008, and I think the first episode was the Clark sisters, and after the Clark sisters, it was a DeBarge family. But I felt like it was just, that's a long time to know that DeBarge was such a big group back in the 80s, and then you had Switch that came before them in the 70s, and so it's like, why didn't they do that episode, around that time to kind of make it sync? But, I say it's better late than never. So even though I felt like it was well overdue, I'm still glad that they did it. But one thing I will say before I close this video is that the DeBarge family was very, and they still are, musical people, because I believe Elle, he still does music, and I believe Bunny, she still does music as well. But I find it really sad and heartbreaking that they went through the struggles that they did and the abuse that they suffered from their dad. They still carry that. And I'm not going to spoil the episode for you all, to those who haven't seen the episode yet, because you can go on TV One's website. If you didn't see it last night, you can go on their website and view the whole episode. But one thing I will say is that it's sad that all of the abuse that Bobby suffered in his life as well, the same sufferings that his siblings suffered, it carried him to the grave. Because their father, as we all know, if you, to those who are DeBarge family fans, that their father was very abusive to them. He abused their mother, and he abused pretty much all the siblings. And I remember that James DeBarge had said that in the DeBarge family episode that Bobby pretty much bore the blunt of the abuse. And I guess since he was the oldest, he got a lot of flack from his daddy, and he said that he felt that Bobby hated him because I guess that James didn't get abused as much as Bobby did. And one thing I did know that Bobby did suffer or had sexuality conflicts, because the mom wrote a book about her struggles within the DeBarge family and the DeBarge family history, and Bunny wrote a book. But Tommy, who was another member in the Switch group, who was a brother of the DeBarges, he wrote a book as well. And I remember reading the excerpt from Tommy's book, that he discovered that Bobby was gay or may have had homosexual tendencies, because he did see him one time romantically kiss a man. And so when they brought that out in the episode, that wasn't a surprise to me because I'd already knew it, but I'm sure other people who didn't know, they found out then. And it just seemed that, like Elle said it, and it was so sad seeing Elle talk about his brother. And Bunny, she teared up too, and she was talking about it, that they pretty much saw their brother be so talented and so gifted, and he made such an impact on music, but he never accepted who he really was, even up to the day he died. And due to him struggling and battling with who he was, he, like I said before, he let it take him to the grave. And that, I feel like that's why we as people, when we deal with abuse within our families, it's best to talk about that abuse and to make sure we stop abuse like that from happening. But we need to also make sure that if we're ever abused, to make sure that we have healthy outlets and to get that abuse and those resentments and those sentiments from abuse out of our system, because if not, we can let those things carry us to the grave. But one thing I was happy to see in that episode of Switch was Elle. Elle is one of my most favorite out of the DeBarges, and I was happy to see him healthy and see him looking good, and it still sound the same, because if you saw the DeBarge episode, they announced that he couldn't be a part of the episode because at the time he was dealing with his own drug abuse battle. And so at the time, the reason why a lot of the other siblings weren't a part of that Unsung episode is because they were still dealing with their own addictions and conflictions, with their own demons that had been riled up from that abuse. But other than that, I felt like that episode was a very good episode. It was well deserved, even though it was overdue, and it was excellent. And I'm glad that Unsung finally did an episode on Switch. So before I go, I want to make sure that you all like my video. Please subscribe to my channel, comment if you feel like it, and Don't forget to watch my videos whenever I upload them during the week. Have a good day. Bye.